Hello, Scott. Welcome here to the Wellness Lab podcast, and happy to have you today to learn more about what you've been doing from a mindset perspective, unlocking peak performance, and also doing lots of great work around Ukraine, some of that specific mental
Mhm.
focus, dealing with trauma, and other topics. But I'll pass the microphone over to you so you can properly give us a quick intro and give us some background that we can learn more from yourself.
That's great, Lilia. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I appreciate any time I get to share what I love, which is what you just described. It's interesting because I speak to many different audiences, and we'll talk a little bit about that varying spectrum of people. Um, yeah, what is it? Is it mindset? Is it trauma relief? Is it humanitarian stuff? What exactly am I doing these days? And I appreciate the opportunity to explain because it all is connected. And this is one of the big messages I like to bring out to the world is that the old system of having siloed approaches to life, that is to say, hey, you live your life and then you get sick and you go to the doctor, or you're feeling bad, you go to the psychologist. No, those days are really over, and we need to be able to weave very practical, high efficacy techniques, meaning they work well, into our daily lives, into our families, and into our communities. And that's really what I've been doing for the past 17 years, albeit in different formats, and work with athletes, still do that. And then helping them identify mental and emotional blocks to help them play better, and working with, Ukrainians who are being bombed daily and trying to figure out how are they going to stay healthy and productive. And as I say, true victory is when the sovereign entity of Ukraine is preserved and the people then be whole themselves. So I'll put the trademark on holistic victory. How's that?
Amazing. I love it. And as you mentioned, this is something we need to consider. We cannot see our body just working on silos. We have this system, probably that's a good way to put it together. It's a system, things are interconnected, and mental portion, physical component, that all comes into play to really create the wellness overall. So
Yes.
thanks, God.
Yeah.
And one thing that I know we discussed before, I would like to touch upon. I know you're EFT certified, but
Yeah.
probably for anyone on the audience listening to us, just to dive in more about what this certification mean, what's
Yes.
all about, and then how has that helped you with the work you do on your mission in life.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And you're right. It is a mission in life. We can talk more about that later, but I do feel like that. I call it a calling. This is not something that just came about randomly. So yeah, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and it has been it's widely studied, although still not mainstream. And that's part of my mission, is to try to make it more mainstream around the world. And it's an opportunity really to use very simple technique that's powerful, that for lack of a better, more detailed way to say it, it helps people deal with anxiety, helps them relax. If we want to use some physiology or lingo, we could say it helps access the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest. And it can be used for so much more than that. But yeah, I got certified in this, and it's, as I tease my brethren in the physical training world, because I'm also certified in the kettlebell world. Um, my certification took over 2 years. The kettlebell cert took a weekend. So the certification I got is from the gold standard in the US, which is a group called EFT Universe. They do a tremendous job at preparing a curriculum that's implemented both online and in the old days when I did it in person, full of mentoring, full of practice sessions. I think these days you have to have 70 hour-long sessions with many, many people in order to learn this craft. And it allowed me to do what I do, which is work with anybody on any topic. And, again, kind of this traditional psychology world may cringe when they hear a layperson like myself talking like that. But I'm not doing therapy. And I want to make that very clear to anybody listening. I am not a therapist. I use techniques that I actually teach to therapists. So I stand in front of NGOs in Europe and I teach the psychology staff there how to use EFT. But I myself am not a therapist. And that's the great thing about these techniques, is that one does not have to be a white lab coat person in order to learn EFT and help themselves, help their family, help their community. And that's why I'm excited about it, because it is, the word we use is scalable, meaning I can teach somebody, they can teach somebody, geometric progression. All of a sudden, we've got millions of people across, and then you can fill in the blank. Presently, I say Ukraine, millions of people who will know this, and they can bring it to the grassroots level, as well as the institutional intervention level. And in the United States, same thing. And I'll stop there and take a breath.
Thank you, Scott. So now that you mentioned the Ukraine project you've been part of to connect the EFT portion,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken, the way you are doing it, you have gone maybe 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. And from these times you've been there, you are supporting or training, helping this knowledge go through others, and that's the way that you might be able to let it instill, and then it can replicate as you go. Is that the way you'll say
Yeah,
it works?
so I think we'll back it up just a little bit to 2022, when the full-scale invasion started in February 24th. And I was reading the Washington Post. I live in the DC area, and I was weeping. I was literally, I get emotional just thinking about it now. And I don't really know why, other than, I'm a compassionate person, empathetic person. And I knew I wanted to contribute something to help these people. Um, and a couple days, well, maybe a couple weeks later, I saw another article in the newspaper, and they were interviewing a U.S. Army veteran who had volunteered to use his own money and fly over to Ukraine and fight alongside the Ukrainian forces. And there's many, many great Americans who did that. And the reporter said, "Yeah, isn't that kind of crazy?" And the veteran said, "I'm trained for this. It would be crazy for me not to do it." And that really hit me, because I thought, well, I'm trained too. And so I took the techniques that I originally learned for sport performance, and through life realized they were really about trauma relief. And I brought them over to Ukraine, first online. I joined a team of people that were similarly trained, similarly motivated in Europe and North America. And I ultimately ended up taking over the online piece of that group, and we rebranded as our new entity, which is called PURE, which stands for Promoting Ukrainian Resilience and Empowerment. And we continue to provide a hybrid of online EFT services for free, as well as me, yes, coming to Ukraine and teaching a wide variety of people. And so, yes, the NGO psychologists and rehab centers, and even medical doctors and medical students I've taught at great institutions. I also work with individual people, but really the cool stuff, well, it's all cool. When I get to be in front of children, is special to me. I started off as a youth sport coach, baseball, soccer, football, all of that. And I just have a heart for kids. And so these kids are living with unimaginable stress right now. I'm sitting in the United States today. I'll be returning to Ukraine in 3 weeks. And it's very strange to be in the United States, where it's very safe. And kids are, the stress is, are they looking at their phone too much? Are they getting their homework done? The very, we'll call them first world problems. And in Ukraine, these kids are, am I going to be able to get down into the bomb shelter fast enough? Am I going to die? That is their daily life. And when I've been there, I had the honor of going to both a private church school as well as public school, and teaching kids and teachers how to do EFT in a very simple, I'm in the moment of stress kind of way. So There's lots that can be done for people with existing solutions. I have my own podcast. I'm going to give myself a shameless plug here. It's the Spirit of Coaching podcast. And I tell that theme many times, which is we really don't have to invent new solutions. We have plenty of things that are in the world today that are proven and they work. We just have to implement. And for some reason, humans don't like to change. And so change can be really slow. The data out there on EFT is that it generally delivers the same kind of results as the gold standard techniques of psychology, like cognitive behavioral therapy, except it does it faster, it lasts longer, it affects more people. And then I think the best part is that it can be done by anybody with very little training. I've taught 8-year-olds how to do this, within an hour. And so I've also taught recently, I'm proud of this work, is I teamed up with a Ukrainian psychologist and we stood in front of pre-combat active duty military people. And we taught them how to do EFT so that they could perform their duties better and then recover more quickly and more efficiently. And, that's the tip of the iceberg. So I'll stop talking.
Thank you. Thanks for elaborating and educating us with how it works, what it is, what it means. So the other thing or topic question that comes to mind is with the EFT framework, it can be applied to anyone. Let's say in this
Hmm.
case, we're talking more about the trauma, war, and really a hard scenario that I can only imagine how complicated it is to come out from that. As you say, here we are thinking like, oh, maybe today I don't know, I lost the train to get to work, and we are overcomplicating things and feeling we are not lucky, or that the world is gonna just fall down. But then you appreciate how lucky we are. I am in Canada, and I do feel sometimes there's things happening, and I just think this is not going well. What are we gonna do? But as you mentioned, change is always difficult, no matter what. So is this something that probably, in my perspective, with my kids, sometimes they're having a hard time at school or with their fears, right? There's regular fears during
Yeah.
nighttime or so. Is this something that obviously anyone that is listening to us can practice it or do it somehow
Yeah,
to help with?
100%. That's a great question. And yes, again, 100% is that EFT is so flexible. It can be used on literally any subject. We can say limited it to the psychological, emotional, mental. That is the unseen. The reality is that when you work with people enough on the unseen, it shows up in the scene, which is our body, and that's really cool. We could do 2-hour podcast just on that. Lots of great stories about how physical change came about through working with the non-seen stuff, the unseen things. Yeah, so here's how it works with a human, it seems. When we have anxiety about school or doing homework or anything in life, um, that particular event really has nothing negative about it. It is our perception of it. And so our perception is based on subconscious programs, we'll call them, that got put inside of us, usually ages 0 to 6, 0 to 5. Our brains are in a literal state of a brainwave that looks like hypnosis in an adult. When you're a little kid, as they say, oh, they soak it up like a sponge. That's true. They are soaking it up. However, they do not have the ability to create the right context for that information. And so while they see, as they're walking down the street with their parent and they say mother, a dog runs up at the fence line and barks and mother shrieks, all of a sudden the kid says dogs are not safe. And so that's a very normal psychological response. It is the socialization process in many ways. And that's great. It's a survival mechanism. However, when we get to a certain age and we want to express who we truly are, we are now blocked off from doing that because of those very same wonderful survival techniques and coping mechanisms. So EFT can be used to identify those and then remove them. In the case of the barking dog, it's a bit of a combination of exposure therapy, a little bit of cognitive work in the EFT, and then the mainstay of it, which is tapping. And so very often people call EFT tapping because we're tapping on meridian endpoints that are designated spots. They are the same spots if you look at your acupuncturists or your chiropractic office. They usually have a big long chart of the human body with meridian lines running through it. And as we tap, I'll give you the little science for your audience here. As we tap, we are converting mechanical energy, that's the movement of patting on something, into electrical energy. And this is weird. How does this happen? I don't know. It's how we're built. When we tap on our bodies, there is a small electrical signal that gets created. It's called a piezoelectric signal. It's the same kind of electrical signal that gets created when you hit quartz. If you crush a quartz crystal in the dark, it will actually emit light. It's a cool experiment. Same thing, when we are kind of not crushing, but tapping on our body, we are creating this electrical signal that travels through the fascia, which is this network that holds us together, as well as is a communication network. And that signal can go lots of places. Let's say it goes to the brain, it does, and it goes to the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is a little part of our brain that will be involved deeply in the emotional part of our system, and it's involved with the other parts of us as well. I'm trying to keep out of the geek talk here. Other parts to create the neurochemistry around fear, anxiety, etc. So if we can use this electrical signal, it seems to soothe the amygdala so that it doesn't get into this hyper-arousal state, because there's nothing dangerous about most of our lives in the United States and around the world. We perceive the threats to be emotional. Well, we see people frown at us, yell at us, etc. That's not really a threat. Saber-toothed tiger, that's a threat from days gone by. Invaders coming armed down the street, that's a real threat. But most people don't live with that. And so we can use EFT to peel away the old programs so that we can live life more neutrally, we'll say, so that we get to decide if we want to have a bad feeling or a positive feeling. And that's a far cry from the knee-jerk reaction that most of us go through all day long for year and decades and decades. And some people just live their whole life like that. And I'm going to make the leap and say, hey, a lot of disease is related to that because we're bathing our cells in cortisol instead of the feel-good neurotransmitters that they can replicate in. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for diving deep into how it works. And it's really amazing how our bodies work. And as you
Yeah.
mentioned, there's this, if I can put it like energy, and how it just changes and fluctuates. And the way we channel the energy also has to do with it, right? If we're focusing, probably going into this mental aspect on what could go wrong or what's not well, then we're just creating this type of bad energy that will obviously reflect on ourselves too, from a physical manner, not only this mental portion. So it makes lots of sense of what you have just mentioned and how it all works and interconnects. So having said that, I know you're working on the Ukraine component. Is this at this point in time your main core or focus? I know you also have done supporting youth through sports, resilience, this mental awareness. Just want to understand
Yeah.
those, like how are you managing with both? Are
Yeah.
you doing any like both at the same time?
Yeah. So I would say 90% of my time now is focused on Ukraine. That is because that's what my heart said to do. And I followed it, and it has been an amazing, life-changing experience in many ways. I still do work with athletes, not as much as I did before, and I will always work with athletes. I played college baseball. I was that kid who needed me to help, and it didn't exist. And so that's why I created this for Sports World. Um, and so right now, my organization, Pure, is demonstrated over the past 12 months that there's a real need and a desire for people in Ukraine to learn this technique. And I'm going to be going out into the world and raising humanitarian money to really make this sustainable. I happily funded this out of my pocket over the past 12 months to prove it. And yeah, that's where we're going to go. So ultimately, the name Pure will just become Pure because we will be in other conflict zones around the world beyond Ukraine. And we'll wear that label proudly because it references our Ukrainian brothers and sisters who are amazing. And, I'm looking forward to that, to growing the team. Um, Presently, I've probably trained over 200 psychologists in Ukraine. And of that group, I'll be pulling into conversations to try to get some of them to join as well. And I want to make it a revolutionary experience for everybody, not just the recipients of EFT, but also the practitioners. Um, Psychologists in Ukraine don't make a lot of money. Um, they are getting what would be the right word, fire hose, of information coming at them now because they have to. They, in the past, were not trained necessarily to the disciplined level of American psychologists or Western Europe psychologists. They're getting it now, and then some. And I've always said it since the war got escalated in 22, is that Ukraine will become the world leader in human optimization and rehabilitation. And people look at me crazy, even Ukrainians. And I said, yeah, this is happening because you have to. The pressures on that society now have never been seen before. And they are a group of people that have been, I say, it's iterating. Now, the word pivoting does not translate well in Ukrainian. I've learned from my translators, but that's what they do so well is they pivot, they iterate, they create something new, they try it, they keep going, they keep going. There's just an awesome resilience. I'm sorry to my Ukrainian friends who've heard that word too much. They are suffering, they are tired, they are also not people who give up, and they love freedom. And so I know in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they will have this amazing resource hub, we'll call it, where people from all around the world will come and they will learn from Ukrainians because they will have done things and field tested them in a way that others haven't. And I'm proud to be
Yeah,
part of that.
yeah, that's an amazing, as I mentioned, like way to give to others to put in practice what you've done or what you do best.
Yeah.
And I cannot think of a better example rather than just supporting others that have gone through really this hard situation, the trauma, and as you mentioned, the resilience they have built, it would be incredible. So I totally support that. And two more things that I would like to ask you before it's almost time to wrap it up would
Mhm.
be, I saw from your podcast, we will be sharing obviously below the links to it so anyone can listen, but there's a story from Dan Nevins. Is
Yeah.
he from Ukraine?
No, Dan is a U.S. I think Army combat vet who, yeah, he is similar to the Ukrainians because the Ukrainians, this war has created more amputees than any other war in history. It has over 100,000 civilians and military people, and there'll be more because unfortunately there is huge swaths of land that are mined, and it's very difficult. They'll take decades to remove all of those. And Dan lost his legs in, I'm sorry, Dan, I can't remember. It's I think Iraq.
Got it.
And he is an incredible guy. And he's the kind of guest that's not just informational and entertaining, but motivational because he has got two amputated legs and he is a yoga teacher. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So um, lots of stories that obviously when we hear them, it makes us find there's more to life than just this little problems that we face every day that might feel big because we're immersed in our very own world, but totally worthwhile listening to these types of stories. And the other thing, going back to your project, Pure, and the Ukraine component, what's the best way anyone listening or myself, because I'm really interested in seeing
Mhm.
how can we support your mission?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you so much. And I have been blessed by other people who have asked, and I've learned to ask for help. Yes, and there are some people who have donated their expertise, marketing or graphics work or anything. And so, how do they find out more? Right now, I don't do a good job yet of telling the story. I mean, excuse me, I tell the story verbally well. I don't have it on a website yet, and I coincidentally, I just received an offer from a wonderful American born in Kiev um, to create a website for me. So hopefully that comes up in the next 30 days or so. We can get something there. And in the meantime, if somebody wants to learn more about it, they can contact me. And I love when people do this. I think a lot of times in life, people are afraid to reach out to somebody that they hear in the news or on a podcast. And I just always say, I'm a real person. I love meeting people. Go to my website. There's a contact page. My website is the championplaybook.com. That's my sport-based website. I'm happy to have you send me an email too. I'll give you that right here. It's scott@coachscottfox.com. And I'm on Instagram at coach_Scott_Fox. And Scott is two T's, Fox is one X. And you'll see on the Instagram a lot of things about Ukraine these days. It's basically I'm posting about my podcast, the Spirit of Coaching podcast, and Ukraine. And yeah, I mix in some athletic stuff in there now and then because I'm an athlete. I can't let that go.
Perfect. We'll be sharing those links below
Yeah.
in the comments, so anyone can really just go and click if they didn't have a chance to grab it all. But that's amazing. I really want to thank you for your time. And one other thing that really I think helps a lot is now that we are in this world where technology exists, you are also able to help remotely. Let's say you hop on a virtual call and there's a way you can have a webinar and do some work or just support someone that reaches out and
I
so
want to
on,
leave
right?
leave your audience with one story on that note. So I'm very proud of a marriage I put together of two groups: the certifying group that I mentioned earlier, EFT Universe, and another group called the Ukrainian Institute of Trauma Therapy. Wonderful people on both sides of that equation. We together trained a group of psychologists, 30 or so. One of them reported already that she lives in the eastern side of Ukraine. This is the area that's under the most intense fire. It is near the occupied zones. The invaders have taken over, Ukrainian army trying to beat them back. Very intense area. And she said that she was out there during an attack. There was an air raid siren, and a grandmother was nearby, an older lady, and she was absolutely, terrified. This psychologist said, "Hey, babusia is the word for grandmother. Come over here and do this, and tap on your face in these certain spots." And there was initial resistance, but she got her to do it. And then after a few minutes, the grandmother was like, I feel better. Wow. And so that's the beautiful thing of this. We'll call it the butterfly effect. I'm some sports guy in the United States. Technology allowed me to teach, to help connect people, and it affected some grandmother on the eastern front of Ukraine. I mean, I got goosebumps describing that.
That's huge, and love that we have technology in place to support and reach farther. Probably with this, your project will scale, grow faster. You'll have support from all over the world, I'm pretty sure. And yes, I'm happy to, or I'm excited to see where things get at, how you can change lives, and
Mm.
anyone in the audience can support spreading the word.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time here, Lilia. You provide a great podcast platform, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. A pleasure having you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.